I have a wall hanging right here to my side that I see every day when I come in this office. And it says, "Be fearless." And what I love about it is there's birds on it. It's like a very bold kind of wall hanging. It's black and white. It's got bold golden yellow letters. And then the background is white. So like the birds are in white against this black background, right? So I see that, right? And I see that as like, shining your light, balancing your light and shadow. And that's how we overcome these fears. But the more and more I've come into this office and looked at that wall hanging, right? I've seen it as two words: fearless. And I've meditated on that more and more. And I actually gave advice to a client of mine last night with this very statement: fearless. Fearless is not saying be without fear, because we're human and we live in this plane where there's going to be things that trigger us, and there's going to be circumstances that bother us and all of that stuff, right? But we can't let, the point is, we can't let fear be our decider, though. That's where a lot of our sabotage comes from. That's where a lot of our soul goals get derailed. Most, if not all, of our personal problems are rooted in just fear. Fear that has not been realized and transmuted. Okay? So fearless means fearless. Work towards just simply fearing less. Lessening the impact and influence that fear has over your decisions. And recognize also, this is what I told my client last night, and it's eye-opening for me too, because I deal with my own fears, right? But fear is not meant to be fought. It's not meant to be avoided. It's not meant to be belittled or made the adversary. Fear is simply just wanting your support. That fear is coming up because there's an area within yourself that feels unsupported, maybe even several areas that feel unsupported. And so when that fear really comes up, it's actually asking you to just listen. And in that moment, I advise that when you are about to do something and that fear comes up, and instead of letting it guide your decisions, but also instead of avoiding it, just sit and say, "How can I support you?" Meaning yourself. Sit and take a few deep breaths and say, "Okay, how can I support you in feeling better, stronger, healthier, safer?" Whatever is coming up for you around that fear that needs to be heard, listen and ask yourself, okay, where am I not feeling supported? Where am I not feeling safe? Where am I feeling insecure? And what can I do to support you? That will calm the fear down at least a little bit, just enough for you to start using your own personal techniques and, methods that help you get calmer and centered and grounded, right? So you can listen and then move forward with clarity. Okay? Write down all of your fears that you're dealing with right now. This could be 3, this could be 7, it could be 12 things that you know are your fears, okay? And look at that list and just say, my goal is to fear less. Tackle one at a time, okay? You might be able to only focus on one per year, and that's okay, because think of, as you look at the visual of your fears, think of how your life would change if you could just knock one of those off your list and fear it less and allow it to lessen in its ability to influence your decision making. And be inspired by that rather than intimidated by it. Okay? It's also really important that we understand our fear responses. There are 4, okay? And I actually looked it up and I got a perfect list to describe exactly how I wanted to talk about these 4 types of fear. But we only talk about the 3, right? Or no, actually, we only talk about 2 of them typically. We all know fight or flight. But we don't talk enough about freeze, and we don't talk enough about fawn. It's important to know your fear response. Everybody's got their very unique response out of these 4. Okay, I'm not saying that we don't shift into the others at times depending on situations, but most of the time we have one that is like our primary. That's the one that's held us hostage. That's the one that we've gone to for comfort and, you know, just out of patterns of familiarity with it and haven't worked on it. Okay. And if we can understand our personal response to fear and to triggers or just challenges, change, we can then better support ourselves rather than avoid ourselves or conflict with ourselves. Okay, so there's fight, there's flight, freeze, and fawn. I'll say them again. And before I start talking about their definitions, I want you to see if like one sticks out to you. Think of when you're afraid. And if one of these resonates with you, hold on to that for a second, and then we'll talk about the definitions of each, okay? Fight, flight, freeze, fawn. The fight response is aggressive and defensive. It's an aggressive defensive response to a perceived danger. So when you are afraid, you feel threatened by something or someone or a circumstance or a challenge or whatever. And immediately you start getting aggressive, defensive, argumentative even, sarcastic even. It's an angry response. And physical signs are tense muscles, racing heart, fast breathing, heat rising in the body because you could be getting frustrated and annoyed. Behavioral signs are hostility and yelling, and sometimes even the urge to physically act out. It could also just be an argumentative personality or someone who's just very sarcastic and constantly just egging someone on, you know, and just like pushing buttons. Okay. So the fight response, if we look at it in a positive sense, if we can shift that into a positive sense, right? How you can better support yourself if this is your fear response is, how can I better take action in areas of my life that I'm not? How can I better stand up for myself? How can I better affirm myself and advocate for myself? How can I be an active participant in my life rather than a passive one, passive aggressive one? Because the fight response is an action. It's an immediate response. So that means deep down inside of you is a very active, proactive doer, right? Like you want to get shit done. But the fear, you're letting the fear dictate that active response. And now it's getting pissed off and threatened by anything that challenges you to move. But what's funny about that is you're moving anyway by getting aggressive. So use that energy and sit with it and say, okay, how can I better support you by standing up for you? How can I better support you by taking action? What area do I need to take action in right now that will help you feel better, safer, more secure, more confident? Okay, does that make sense? The next response is flight. The flight response when we are afraid is an instinct to escape a threatening situation. So whereas the fight response is, I'm going to defend myself because I feel threatened, the flight response is, holy shit, I'm scared, I want to hide. Holy shit, I'm scared, I want to run. I need someone to help me. You know what I'm saying? Behavioral signs can include OCD-like behaviors or rituals. which can be a way to feel more in control. This can also be seen in avoidant behavior, avoidant, anxious type of behavior that, is very scattered. And that's because you're avoiding, you're flying away, flittering away from what needs to be confronted. Usually people with the flight response are afraid of, most of these fear responses are actually afraid of confrontation. And they approach it differently. Whereas the fight response is, I'm going to take you down before you take me down, instead of just confronting things realistically, right? The flight response is like, oh my God, you're trying to take me down. You're trying to hurt me. I'm just going to run. Oh, this is too scary. I can't do this. I'm going to run. Oh, I have to face this. I can't do it. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to go organize this closet because, it's messy. At least I can have control of that and not focus on that. A flight response is also focusing on all the other problems outside of you. Sometimes even getting involved in drama that's not yours to avoid your own drama and your own trauma. So the flight response, how you can support this fear, right, is simply sitting and saying, how can I show up for myself? Whereas the fight response is, how can I take action? Like, what are steps I can actually take? What do I actually need to be doing right now to make myself feel stronger, safer, protected, like I'm provided for? The flight response just needs to be still and show up, be present. How can I be more present for myself? How can I show up for myself consciously instead of running away from myself and consistently abandoning myself? How can I start stopping self-abandonment right now? Okay. The freeze response is a literal state of being immobilized or paralyzed by fear. It can be mistaken for inaction or passivity. This can also show up in procrastinating. If you are a heavy procrastinator, like you are in your head about all the things you need to do, but instead you're scrolling on your phone or you're watching 20 videos or, you're just zoning out and stuff, you're in a state of freeze response. Because in your mind and your subconscious, you want to get things done. You actually do have goals, but you're paralyzed by anxiety. And so now you're doing something else that still keeps you immobilized, but makes you feel like you're doing something, but you're really not. And then it contributes to that anxiety and that immobilization. Okay, so the freeze response can be mistaken for like laziness, inaction, passiveness, when really you're just scared, and it's so scared that it immobilizes you. And the physical signs of this can be reduced movement and slowed breathing. So like just feeling like you don't want to, like you want to do things, but you don't. And everything just feels like it's going really slow. And like you're zoning out. Behavioral signs can be, playing dead to become less noticeable. That's a pretty interesting extreme. But like think about how if we like break that down a little bit, playing dead to become less noticeable. So like acting like you don't exist, not wanting to draw attention, right? Not wanting to be picked, not wanting to be chosen, dismissing yourself and your needs, being low maintenance, looking at the phone as it's ringing and somebody's calling you and you don't answer it, like stuff like that, okay? So the freeze response. How you can better support yourself with the freeze response is, how can I accept myself as a perfectly imperfect being? How can I accept that I am not perfect? How can I release ideas of perfection today? How can I stop being hard on myself today? Because usually people with the freeze response are hard on themselves. You get immobilized because you feel like you can't do anything when you can. Okay? You get immobilized because you feel like it has to be just right. So, you don't want to get yelled at. You don't want to be belittled. You don't want to look stupid. So you get so immobilized by whatever's threatening you that you don't want to look dumb. So you just don't do anything. You don't want to be noticed because you're afraid you're going to mess up. Well, guess what? We all mess up. Okay? Please, do you see some of my videos? I come on here with my hair all a mess and shit. Like, I don't care. Because the message is important to me. What I have to say in that moment, how Spirit is leading me, is important to me. Okay? So if I got to come on here with my hair in a messy ass bun, or, you know, my teeth not brushed yet because I haven't gone to do it yet, but I have to get on here and, you know, do something, like, I'm going to do it. Now, was I like that when I first started doing these videos? Hell no. I was a perfectionist too. And I had all those same anxieties of like, oh, the video has to look perfect. I have to look perfect, you know? And it's like, no. Release perfection, and that'll help you get out of the freeze response. Okay? Ask yourself how you can be kinder to yourself, how you can be more patient with yourself, how you can show up for yourself in a way that is not demanding this ridiculous idea of perfection, and just be honest. Does that make sense? And then finally we have the fawn response. This one especially doesn't get spoken on enough, and I think it should. Because holy hell, this one is a deceptive one, and this one is actually a common one in a lot of people. Especially if you, like, you know, you've been through trauma, and, you know, we live in a society where it's like you're conditioned to, like, lie to get ahead. And that's not me being negative, but, like, really think about it. Really think about it. Two very common things that we do where we're conditioned to lie: go on dates and get jobs. When you go and you start dating, you are conditioned to feel like you have to be on your best behavior, and you have to show this person to this other person that isn't you at all. Like, how many times have we heard of women that don't eat in front of their potential partner on these dates because they're embarrassed to eat in front of them? Come on, you eat, right? And I'm in that boat. I've done it. Like, so it's ridiculous, right? And then how many times are we forced to, in, you know, job interviews, or taking the doing the oh my god, I can't think of the word. The job application. Oh my goodness. Filling out the job application, right? And they ask you all these questions, and you have to make sure you answer the most positive answer, you know, and you have to lie about how you'd really respond in that situation. Now, I'm not saying, like, go punch a customer in the face. Like, that's not a ideal response, right? But, like, what if you have a different way of problem solving that is workable, and it doesn't align with what's on that answer, you know? And you're just, those are two major areas where we're taught to lie and fawn and act like we're harmless and all that stuff, which I'll get to, in order to get ahead. And then when the real us comes out later, people are like, who is this person? You know? So I just felt like I had to share that because that's so in alignment with the fawn response. It's not even funny. Fawn is a people-pleasing response to de-escalate situations, avoid conflict. It can be a way to gain approval and a sense of safety. Okay? It is a way to make yourself appear harmless so that people don't hurt you or give you attention, too much negative attention, or leave you, or it's basically, it stems from a very deep-seated lack of self-esteem. You know, it's this fear of, like, if I'm not what other people need me to be, then no, I will have no one. And what it says is you don't even have you. You don't even have your back. You don't even have your own identity. Your identity is forged in pleasing other people and being this chameleon. And it can really fuck with your identity. You know, so behavioral signs are like constantly agreeing with others, having no opinion of your own, being afraid to share your opinions, putting other people's needs first, and suppressing your own desires. Okay, so this is a big one. How many of us can relate to this one? You know, I used to think that mine was the fight response until I learned more about fawn. And I realized that fight response was my blow up mode after fawning for a long time. And I used to say it was, oh, because, I'm a Taurus, I'm patient, and I can just deal with a lot before I blow up. And it's like, well, that's a weird condition to put on myself, right? Why would I want to put that out there? Like, oh, I can just put up with a lot until I explode. How about no? How about I put up with the normal everyday stuff, but there's things I'm not going to tolerate. And I'm not going to tolerate it till I fucking blow up, and neither should you. And so I used to think that my fear response was fight, when really it was actually fawn. I am still recovering from this people pleasing, this fear of sharing myself at times, and how people are going to respond and yada yada. And because that was like deep seated in there, like that was seeded, planted. There was a whole garden of that put in my brain, okay, from my family, from just partners I had in the past that couldn't accept me for who I was. So much. Okay, so I'm still working through that too. And it's very freeing to not be in that response as much anymore. To recognize it as it comes up and to work through the grief around that response. There's a lot of grief in that one. There's a lot of grief in all of them. They're all grieving. They're parts of you that want your attention. But that fawn response is like, holy hell, that just messes your identity up so much. And a lot of us have that. And then our secondary fear response is usually one of the other three. So like, you might fawn so much and then somebody threatens you in some way or doesn't show you the love that you thought you were going to get, and you could run away. You could hide. You could freeze and procrastinate and go into a slump and not do anything. Or you could just get straight up pissed off. So this one is one that's, I think, a big one for the collective, is the fawn response. Because how many of us are taught to people please, to not say certain things, to act a certain way, to live a certain way, to make sure that we are the bigger person, the better person, instead of just being honest and saying, hey, that was really crappy what you did. So that's one that really needs to be worked on, I think, at all of our roots. Its origin, this one actually discusses its origin, which is very cool. It says it's often developed in childhood trauma and can be a way to seek safety. Okay, so getting back to all of that, how you can support the fawn response is going into those early childhood years and asking yourself, what was it that I lacked that I can start giving myself now? Going into that root chakra, that sacral chakra, and that solar plexus, okay? And those are all your lower chakras, okay? From childhood to, early adult, teenage, young adult years, okay? What did I lack early on in my life growing up, and how can I start advocating for myself and giving that to myself now so that I am filling my cup, so that I don't feel like I need to be a certain way to get that out of other people, while also abandoning my entire self to just feel this false sense of belonging. How can I choose myself now? How can I belong to myself now? So this way I don't choose people who constantly only choose me because I'm being what they want me to be, and I'm being this idea that they have of me. So remember that a majority of, if you're going through some kind of imbalance, sabotage, blocks, recurring issues in your life, a lot of it stems from fear. And if you understand that fear just wants your support, and you understand the kind of ways you respond to fear, you can respond better to it in a supportive and safe way that shifts that fear back into faith, that helps you to fear less and lessens the influence that fear has over all of your life decisions. I hope this helps you. I hope this motivates and energizes and encourages you. And if you need help with any of this at all, please don't hesitate to come to me. We can work on this together. I'm available for all kinds of holistic sessions, from tarot coaching to Reiki to spiritual coaching and so much more. You can email me at jpspiritualfitness@gmail.com and we can discuss a plan for you that can work to help you work through this fear and overcome it and realize that there's medicine in it and it doesn't have to continue to poison you anymore. I'm available Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays from 12 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time if you want to work one-on-one together on this very issue. Again, you can email me at jpspiritualfitness@gmail.com. And if you don't want to work together, but you just want to support the work that I'm doing on and offline, you can click the link below to buy me a coffee and supply me in tons of magic bean potions that make all of these videos possible. Thank you for listening. I love you so much. Take care of yourself.